Billionaire dad sees black, Maid leads autistic son in piano. What happens next was unexpected. When tech mogul Jonathan Richardson built his fortune from nothing, he thought money could solve any problem. His sprawling Beverly Hills mansion, worth $30 million, stood as a testament to his success. But inside those marble halls lived a heartbreak that no amount of wealth could fix. His 8-year-old son Samuel had been diagnosed with autism at age 3, and since losing his wife to cancer 2 years prior, Jonathan felt like he was failing the most important job of his life, being a father. Samuel rarely spoke, avoided eye contact, and seemed to exist in a world completely separate from everyone around him. Jonathan had spared no expense, hiring the country's top autism specialists, enrolling Samuel in the most exclusive therapy programs, and purchasing every recommended educational tool. Yet despite all these efforts, father and son remained strangers living under the same roof. Before we continue with this incredible story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories that will touch your heart. Now, let's dive into what happened next. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in March. Jonathan had just returned from a business trip to Tokyo, exhausted and jet-lagged. As he walked through the front door, expecting the usual silence that greeted him, he heard something that stopped him in his tracks. Piano music. Not just any piano music, but a hauntingly beautiful melody that seemed to fill every corner of the house with warmth. Jonathan followed the sound, his heart pounding with curiosity and something else he couldn't quite name. The music led him to the grand piano in the living room, a Steinway grand that had been his late wife's pride and joy. What he saw there would change everything he thought he knew about his son. Samuel sat at the piano bench, his small fingers dancing across the keys with surprising grace. But he wasn't alone. Beside him sat Rosa Martinez, the family's housekeeper, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and gentle hands. She had been with the family for 3 years, quietly going about her duties while Jonathan focused on his business empire. Rosa was guiding Samuel's hands, showing him finger positions, and most remarkably, Samuel was responding. Not just playing the notes, but actually engaging with another human being in a way Jonathan had never witnessed. The boy's usual rigid posture had relaxed, and there was something in his expression that Jonathan had rarely seen: peace. Jonathan stood frozen in the doorway, afraid that any movement might break the spell. Rosa was humming along with the melody, her voice soft and encouraging. Samuel's eyes, usually distant and unfocused, were concentrated on the keys, following Rosa's patient guidance. It was as if she had found a secret language that spoke directly to his son's soul. The piece they were playing was Pachelbel's Canon in D, the same song that had played at Jonathan's wedding. Tears began to well up in his eyes as he realized that Rosa had somehow unlocked something in Samuel that expensive therapy sessions and specialist consultations had failed to reach. After the music stopped, Jonathan watched as Samuel turned to Rosa and smiled. Actually smiled. It was the first genuine smile Jonathan had seen from his son since his mother's funeral. Rosa praised Samuel in both English and Spanish, telling him how proud she was of his progress. Samuel didn't respond verbally, but his body language spoke volumes. He was comfortable, happy even. Unable to contain himself any longer, Jonathan stepped into the room. Both Rosa and Samuel looked up, and Jonathan saw Rosa's face flush with embarrassment. She quickly stood up, smoothing her apron, clearly worried that she had overstepped her boundaries. "Mr. Richardson, I'm so sorry," Rosa began, her accent thick with nervousness. "Samuel wandered in here while I was dusting the piano, and he seemed so interested in the keys. I didn't mean to presume, but he kept reaching for them, and I thought maybe." Jonathan held up his hand, his voice barely above a whisper. "How long has this been going on?" Rosa looked down at her feet. "About 6 months, sir." Samuel comes here every day after his tutoring sessions. He seems to find comfort in the music. I learned to play when I was young back in Mexico, and I thought maybe I could help him. I never meant to interfere with his education or therapy. Jonathan's mind was reeling. 6 months. His son had been experiencing joy, connection, and growth for 6 months, and he had been completely unaware. While he was jet-setting around the world, building his empire, Rosa had been here, discovering his son's hidden talent and nurturing it with the patience and love that Jonathan felt he had failed to provide. "Rosa," Jonathan said, his voice thick with emotion, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Do you think Samuel has real musical ability, or is this just a way to keep him occupied?" Rosa's eyes met his for the first time since he'd entered the room. "Mr. Richardson, your son has a gift, not just for music, but for feeling it. When he plays, it's like he's speaking a language that comes from somewhere deep inside. I've never seen anything like it. He remembers every piece after hearing it just once, and he plays with such emotion. It's not just talent, sir. It's something special." Jonathan looked at Samuel, who had turned back to the piano and was gently pressing individual keys, listening to each note with intense concentration. Would you be willing to continue working with him? I mean, officially? I'd like to hire you as his music teacher, in addition to your other responsibilities." Rosa's eyes widened in surprise. "Sir, I'm not a trained music teacher. I only know what my grandmother taught me as a child." "But you've accomplished something that teams of specialists couldn't do," Jonathan replied. "You've reached him. You've found a way to connect with my son that I've been searching for since his mother died. That's worth more than any degree or certification." Over the following weeks, Jonathan began to see his son in an entirely new light. Samuel's daily piano sessions with Rosa became the highlight of both their days. Jonathan started rearranging his schedule to be home during these sessions, watching from the doorway as his son's confidence grew with each passing day. Rosa proved to be more than just a patient teacher. She had an intuitive understanding of Samuel's needs and learning style. She never pushed him beyond his comfort zone, but she consistently challenged him to try new pieces and techniques. She celebrated his successes with genuine joy and helped him work through his frustrations with endless patience. But the real breakthrough came about a month later. Jonathan was having a particularly stressful day, dealing with a major business crisis that threatened to cost his company millions. He came home exhausted and defeated, slumping into his study chair with his head in his hands. That's when he heard it again. The piano music, but this time it was different. Samuel was playing a piece Jonathan had never heard before, something complex and emotionally powerful. As he listened, Jonathan realized that the music seemed to respond to his mood, as if Samuel was somehow sensing his father's distress and expressing it through the keys. Jonathan made his way to the living room, where he found Samuel playing alone. Rosa was nearby, dusting shelves, but she wasn't actively teaching. Samuel was playing from memory, his small body swaying with the rhythm, completely absorbed in the music. When the piece ended, Samuel looked up and, for the first time since his mother's death, made direct eye contact with his father. Without words, he patted the bench beside him, inviting Jonathan to sit down. With trembling hands, Jonathan sat next to his son. Samuel took his father's hand and placed it on the keys, showing him a simple melody. It was "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," but when played together, it became something magical. Father and son, connecting through music in a way that words had never allowed. Rosa watched from across the room, tears streaming down her face. She had not only helped Samuel find his voice through music, but she had also helped heal the relationship between father and son. From that day forward, Jonathan's priorities shifted dramatically. He began working from home more often, restructuring his business to allow for more family time. He hired additional staff to handle day-to-day operations while he focused on what truly mattered: his relationship with Samuel. The changes in Samuel were remarkable. While he still faced the daily challenges of autism, music had given him a way to express himself and connect with others. His confidence grew, his social skills improved, and most importantly, he began to trust and bond with his father. Jonathan also made another important decision. He insisted that Rosa join the family for dinner every evening, recognizing that she had become much more than an employee. She was family. Rosa's own story began to unfold during these dinners. She had left her family in Mexico to work in the United States, sending money home to support her aging parents and her own children's education. She had sacrificed her own dreams to provide for others, never expecting to find such fulfillment in helping Samuel discover his gift. Moved by her dedication and sacrifice, Jonathan offered to bring Rosa's family to the United States, helping them obtain legal residency and ensuring her children could attend the best schools. Rosa's tears of gratitude reminded Jonathan that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives we touch and the love we share. 6 months later, Jonathan organized a small concert in their home, inviting family friends and Samuel's therapy team to hear him play. As Samuel sat at the piano, with Rosa beside him offering gentle encouragement, Jonathan felt his heart swell with pride and gratitude. Samuel played 3 pieces that evening, each one more beautiful than the last. But the most powerful moment came when he played an original composition, something he had created entirely on his own. The melody was complex and emotional, telling a story without words about loss, hope, and the power of human connection. As the final notes faded, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Samuel looked up at his father and smiled, then turned to Rosa and said his first complete sentence in months: "Thank you for teaching me music." The story of Jonathan, Samuel, and Rosa teaches us that sometimes the most profound gifts come from the most unexpected places. Rosa, a housekeeper who could have easily remained invisible in the Richardson household, instead chose to see potential where others saw only challenges. Her willingness to connect with a child that the world had written off as unreachable created a miracle that no amount of money could buy. Jonathan learned that being a successful father had nothing to do with the size of his bank account, and everything to do with being present, patient, and open to the unexpected ways love can manifest. Samuel discovered that his differences weren't limitations but unique strengths that, when nurtured with love and understanding, could create something beautiful. Today, Samuel continues to thrive, using music as his primary way of communicating with the world. He's begun performing at local autism awareness events, inspiring other families facing similar challenges. Rosa has become an advocate for music therapy in autism treatment, sharing her story with families around the world. Jonathan has also transformed his business practices, creating a foundation that provides music therapy programs for children with autism and other developmental challenges. He's learned that true success isn't measured by quarterly profits, but by the positive impact we have on the lives of others. The grand piano in the Richardson living room still fills the house with music every day, but now it's often accompanied by laughter, conversation, and the sound of a family that has learned to truly see and value each other. This incredible story reminds us that love, patience, and recognition of human potential can create miracles in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes the person who changes our life forever is the one we least expect, and sometimes the greatest gifts come not from what we can buy, but from what we choose to give of ourselves. What an absolutely beautiful and inspiring story. If this touched your heart the way it touched mine, please take a moment to share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of human connection and the miracles that happen when we choose to see the best in each other. And remember, you never know who might be waiting to make a difference in your life. Sometimes they're already right there, quietly working miracles when no one is watching.